Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to this episode of A Visit to the Mound. I'm Lark Smith, and he's
Stan Huff.
Joining us today is the longtime voice of the Round Rock Express, Mike Capps. He's broadcasted over 3,000 games in his career and has witnessed some of the best talent the game has to offer in this millennium. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Lark, we've been friends a long time, and I really appreciate you having me on, bud.
Because the Round Rock Express has been affiliated with the Houston Astros and Texas Rangers over recent years, you've had a chance to witness World Series champions in the making. That has to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at that 2019 team, we were loaded at the beginning with Yordan Alvarez and several of those guys, and watching them grow up was so much fun. And then, gee, Pers, we've had several kids. Well, actually, we had 10 round on this roster for the Texas Rangers that won the World Series.
How about that? That's something else.
Well, it is, Stan, and it's a blessing to get to do this. And my wife told me for years that one of my ministries in life is being in that clubhouse and chatting. And Stan, you'll relate to this so well, and Lark, you will too. There's something about having worn a wet jock most of your life.
I could relate very well to that.
It translates, and kids, these kids pick up on this. And they know I care about them. I walked into the clubhouse this right before our playoffs started, and here's this young Cuban guy, 27 years old, at his locker crying. And in his broken English, I said, JP, what's going on? He said, Abby, I get called to the big leagues for the first time. Well, we sat there and did an interview with him crying and me crying. And later, one of our pitchers came up a couple of weeks later and says, we want you to come talk to these guys in the clubhouse. I go, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking back to my Hill days, and I'm thinking this is a setup, and this is going to end up on Facebook, and I'm going to end up Well, it did. It wasn't, because a week later, I sort of blew him off. A week later, I'm walking through the clubhouse, and our manager, Doug Davis, says, I need you over here at 4:45 to talk to the team. So we had a great talk. I started with a quotation from the English Book of Common Prayer. Lord, let the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable to thee, my rock and redeemer. And then I told them they had a chance to do something that no other Round Rock team has done, and that's win a national championship. We fell short, but it was such an honor to get to do that. When we clinched the second championship out in Tacoma, I was invited down into the locker room. I've been sprayed with beer, and we had a Texas League championship and the playoffs several times in AAA. These guys got me in the shower, and they said, "Okay, what are your last words?"
What are your last words?
Yes. And I said, I'm going to tell you exactly like I told you in the clubhouse. Bring it. And the video,
bring it.
They brought it. I mean, I looked like a double drowned rat. And I went back to change clothes. We were all going out for team dinner. And the lady who was running the front desk at this real nice hotel where we're going, Tacoma, she said, do you need a shower? I said, lady, I need a shower. I need to go through a car wash.
How about
it was a blast, and it's, gosh, Stan, I know as a former manager and player, you'll relate to this so well. It's so great to be a part of a celebration where everybody has busted their backsides for 8, 9, 10 months. And it comes to the fruition that it comes to. It's so special.
Well, you're right, because during the course of that series, that whole year, there's a lot of high anxiety. There's a lot of stress. There's some ups and downs, and you got to wade through all that. And then at the end, when it's all over and you've won something, that's when you bring it. That's when you're letting out everything right there. And I can relate to anybody that's been through that and understand what's going on.
Well, we had a 10-game losing streak before the. This is the craziest thing. We had a 10-game losing streak before the All-Star break.
Right.
2 weeks after the All-Star break, we began and finished a 14-game winning streak. So go figure. I mean, it shows you what a whacked-out league, AAA, is. Whacked out level, number one, because people it's like a bus station. And
no, it is, right. Like a revolving door.
Yeah, and we have over 200 transactions, player transactions every year. So it's the roster and the managers and coaches I just admire so much at this level, because it's not like Bruce Bochy knows who his lineup is going to be for the next 6 days. Somebody goes down. It's just different, and it's. I feel blessed to have stayed at the AAA level. I've been interviewed by 4 different teams for the major league jobs, but I really love this level. Number one, it's so human, and there's so much humanity in it, so much heartbreak, and so much joy when good things happen. I'm an adrenaline junkie anyway, and so it's right up my alley.
I sure understand that. I said, let me do a little turnaround here. Let me ask you, during the game day. Now, when I was managing, the radio guy would come in and ask me, say, okay, I know who's starting, but who you got mid relief and who you got set up, short relief and all that. What kind of conversation did you have with Doug Davis when y'all were together?
Well, it's funny. I pretty much know who he has, who's up. Dave Borkowski was our pitching coach this last year, and he pitched for us in 06 and 08. And so I can read their minds. but one of the big questions we talk about when we get together is specific play, specific times during the game that in their eyes turned it around. The guy makes a good pitch on a 3-2 and just nails the outside corner. And that got him out of a big bind. Maybe they had runners at second, third, or bases loaded, or something like that. And I just think I've been doing this almost 30 years now, and the thing about it is, just pick up so much day by day. The way this is not like a high school deal or 3 days of college baseball. This is day to day, and I just made up my mind when I jumped out of the news business to do this. I rely on my playing background. I played in the VABA in Dallas, which was a bunch of I know you know all about that. And I had a chance to be a leadoff hitter and center fielder, and loved it. But I learned so much from that, and it just translated at each level. And I had 4 years in independent ball, 1 year in AAA before I got the Round Rock AA job, and I've been here since it started. And you just reach a point where this stuff you can forecast it, and you should ask questions every day, and I do. But it sort of becomes second nature when you know who he's going to in the bullpen in a certain situation in a certain game. It's that easy to read. But the bottom line, Stan, I don't take anything for granted, because as you know, this game is so crazy.
I know,
and
right.
Maybe the guy they're going to I don't see him in the pen, and you can bet your bottom dollar he's not in the clubhouse either. He's on his way to Arlington. So
right.
It's a cast of characters and changes every day, but that's a great question. Yeah.
Mike, first time I ever heard your name, you were a reporter at Channel 8 in Dallas. How did you get around to the play-by-play job and the job with Round Rock come about?
It's really funny. I'm going to try to keep it between the lines.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I got to the point at when the last 5 years I was at CNN, and I covered wars, and I covered cop news at Channel 2 in Houston before I went to Channel 8 in Dallas. I saw a lot of blood and guts and gore.
Yeah.
I bet you
The
did.
human being has no way to process that. Well, I ended up processing it, drinking a half a bottle of wild turkey every night or sticking stuff up my and you can't continue.
No.
Just I woke up one night in the middle of the night, one of the last years I was at CNN, and I busted my head wide open with a bedpost. And I had to get into therapy. I had to reorder myself. I had to get back, regain the spirituality I was raised with. My dad was just a stickler for that. A Methodist and just an astounding guy. And I lost him when I was 17 years old. And I all this stuff had built up. And I had a very great conversation with Red Murph. I needed him we were putting together a documentary at Channel 8. And it was on Nolan coming to the Rangers. And he said, son, I know you from someplace. He said, meet me at this ballpark in Arlington. I'm looking at Todd Van Poppel, blah, blah, blah. So I meet him, shake hands. He looks at me and he said, Fireman's Park, Brenham, Texas, May the 29th, 1969. 264 60s, 238. It's a first base swing, right? And I go, whoa. Yes, sir. He said, you are the dumbest SOB I have ever. My third book, Lark, is going to be, you are the dumbest son of a bitch I've ever met. Because, but he told me, he said, why? He had taken me after the running sorties. He stuck me in the dugout there at Fireman's Park. Well, he's auditioning the 8 best pitchers in Texas because the draft was coming up in a week or 10 days, right?
Yeah.
And I'm having to sit. I want to swing the bat. And finally, I flipped off the sub-scout, don't forget this. And it comes back, and Murph is on it, man. And he's what you didn't know, I've seen you get 2 doubles off the second fastest pitcher I ever saw in Texas. And I wrote your name down. That's why you got invited to that tryout camp. What you didn't know, we were going to try to sign you non-drafted free agent and send you out. Yeah. That's it. He said, and there's a second reason too. And I go, wait a minute, there's 2 reasons why I'm the dumbest SOB in the world. And he said, yeah, there were 12 Division I college coaches want to know where you went.
Wow.
So I went to and got off the baseball track into the news track. But when I had that breakdown, I called Red up, and I'd done some part-time scouting for him. He called me up when I had a day off at CNN, and he said, can you run up and look at this first baseman at Oklahoma? Run down to San Antonio and see this guy. And I helped him run off 7 tryout camps, which in my day was really huge because you could get seen that way. Not like if you're not getting seen nowadays, you're not trying.
Right.
Because
that's true. Yeah.
And it wasn't all that, and both of you know, it wasn't always that way, but it was such a fortunate thing. Red handed me a scout's card. I wrote a book with him called The Scout, Searching for the Best in Baseball. Wrote a second book, and it was dedicated to him and to Chuck Hartenstein. And it was as if God said, here is an open door. Walk through it. You need to be there. You should be there. It's where you should have been a long time ago. And you know what? It's been nothing but a joy ride and a blessing from God above. And if you think I take it for granted, boys, I don't.
I understand.
I got you.
Yeah, the Rangers just won the World Series with players that you saw come through the system. Who are the players that might be called up to help the Rangers have back-to-back World Series championships?
Well, I think that I don't think there's any doubt. Somebody asked me the other day if Evan Carter would start with us this year. I go, no. I'm looking for a left-handed pitcher named Jake Latz, who had a brief trial as a reliever. Latz is 6'3", 200 pounds, throws at 97, 98 from the left. He's got 4 pitches. They use him in relief as a closer. I think he's got a chance to be a starter in the big leagues, and I would be willing to bet you they're going to give him a good look as a starter.
Particularly if they lose Montgomery, huh?
Well, and I saw the other day, I thought I read where he has opted for free agency. So,
right.
Gosh, that screams of lads. Okay. And there's any one of a number of kids who came through. I just think for anybody and we had several guys on the 40-man roster that were put on the 40-man roster. I just think it's going to be hard for anybody to crack the opening day starting lineup that they're going to be able to run out there. We had a guy come through on rehab named Travis Jankowski. He was in his early 30s, and he did a great job for them. And he sat. Evan Carter took his spot, and he sat. And then he had Travis had a couple of really good base hits that came up big in the World Series. And so I hope they'll be able to hold on to him because he is a tremendous character young man. Besides being one of the fastest players they have next to Carter, I hope they'll hold on to him.
Well, he came off that bench and got some big hits, and cold. That's a tough job to do coming off the bench after sitting.
Yeah,
it is, and that's one of those things. I tried to carry my wife, and I said, "That's my boy, Travis. That's my boy." And I cheered for him. He used to kick our backsides when he played in El Paso, and when he came into rehab with us, we were playing in Albuquerque, and he was with us the whole week. I said, "Dude, when I saw you got signed in the off season, I screamed out, 'Yes!' And my wife goes, 'What's happened now?' Rangers assigned Travis Jankowski." She said, "That guy that you claimed always kicked your butt." I go, "Yeah, that's him." And so I just cheer for guys like that. And to get back to your question, I think you're going to see our Sam Huff, who was back and forth 6 times. I think you're going to see him stick as their backup catcher. Sam has a lot of power, and he's really, if you made a value judgment, Stan and Lark, as a manager, you would want him playing every day. But with the catching you got now, he doesn't have a chance. And he's got light tower power. I mean, this guy is a monster. I want him to succeed. He needs to be an everyday catcher in the big leagues.
Before we go, you've written a book, or actually you've written 2 books now. I got maybe a third one on the way, but tell us about Grinders and what it was that inspired you to write that book.
Chuck Hartenstein was a reliever and a pitching coach in the big leagues for several years. He still holds a College World Series record he's still in the league in the top 10 ERAs for the College World Series. My cousin Billy signed him for the Cubs right out of college, and he got to the Cubs quickly and then bounced around. Well, he's always been a family heirloom to me. And Chuck and Joyce, we've lost them both. Chuck died at the end of the 21 season, and then Joyce went 6 months later. Terry and I have had him over to eat. We've been at their house to eat. I miss him so much. He had already passed when I got a contract to do Grinders. But Chuck's story was so great. I listed him as a co-author, and if I've got another Grinders book to do. It's called Grinders in Faith, and I don't know when I'm going to have time to publish that, but we'll get that. That's neither here nor there. Bottom line is, Chuck inspired me so much. Jeff Fry is a dear friend of mine. He inspired me so much. There's stories in this book. A lot of people maybe know who Hank Bauer was.
Oh, yeah.
4th or 5th outfielder for the Yankees for 10, 15 years, sometimes a starter. Most people knew him as that. They didn't know he had led like 6 assaults on Japanese islands in World War II as a Marine drill sergeant, and played his 12 or 14 years in the big leagues with shrapnel in his calves and in his back.
Wow.
I mean, Bobby Jones, who managed us here,
I know Bobby,
and then went on to coach for the Rangers. Bobby Jones, he's a piece of work, and I loved him to death. he's in it. He got sent to Vietnam, lost hearing in an ear, and still went back and made it to the big leagues, and then became one whale of a manager. There's a story of a fellow named Deacon Jones, who was the Astros hitting coach for several years. Deacon was signed by the Chicago White Sox, thought he was going to the big leagues, didn't quite make it, but was on a trip between two places in Georgia. This is in the early 60s when they're having all the race riots and stuff. He goes in, they stop at a roadside restaurant. He walks in with some of his white teammates and has a shotgun put to his head. Scares him to death, gets back on the bus. The next time he stops, he calls his mom. Mom says, "Oh, come home." Dad grabs the phone and says, "Listen, no matter a man's color, you are not going to let him intimidate you into stopping your dream. You got that?" Hung up the phone. Deacon said, "I became a man that day."
Absolutely.
I mean, this is the kind of story that we focused on, and people just, and Jeff Fry's is crazy. I mean, he goes to a tryout camp and with a sliced hand, and he bleeds through the glove, and a couple of the scouts say, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I got invited to this camp, and I'm coming to this camp." And they signed him just because of that, and he ended up having a pretty doggone good big league career.
Certainly did.
So it's guys, it's a gift from above. There's no doubt about it. The fact that I'm even doing this now, the fact that I'm still alive, covering wars and cop news and getting shot at, it is a treasure to get to do it. It's a treasure to get to talk to you two guys. Stan, I followed you with the Fort Worth Cats because Bobby Bragan was a good friend of mine, and Bobby showed up at our ballpark in 2005 with a Fort Worth Cats hat, and I wore that Fort Worth Cats hat, and it really PO'd the Astros folks that I was walking around with a Fort Worth Cats hat on. I didn't care. It was a hat that Bobby gave me, and Bobby was another mentor through the years.
Well,
and
Bob, he was in the locker room every day, like he was part of the team, and that we treated him like he was part of the team.
Well, he was, Stan. I miss him so much, and I know you do.
He's a good guy.
Oh, really, really.
Well, Mike,
listen, I know you got to get to Mr. Clyde and say hi for me, please.
We will.
Do.
We certainly thank you for your time today, and best of luck with the Round Rock Express this coming season.
I appreciate it, Lark, and we'll talk to you soon. I know.
Take care, Mike.
That's our
time.
Take
care, Stan.
All right, that's our
time.
time.
You soon, guys.
All right, that's our time for this episode of A Visit to the Mound. Many thanks to our guest today, Mike Capps. If you have any questions or comments, anything you would like for us to cover, we would love to hear from you. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at avisittothemound.com, or go to our website, which is avisittothemound.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast, and be listening the next time we make a visit to the Mound.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.